Coming up next on Mod Projects.
So, let's talk about a few elephants in the room. Mainly Chinese e-bikes. And they're not exactly being honest with us, are they? Let's talk about that. So let's start with the last week. I've been banned from 3 different Facebook pages on a different account. Cyrusher, Engwe again, and what's the other one? It was another Engwe one. I think it was Engwe official site. So you have to ask the question, what was I asking to actually get banned from these pages? And I was asking legitimate questions, like, why is the support so bad? Especially for Engwe, especially for Cyrusher. They're all in the same boat at the moment. They're all talking fabulous support. And when push comes to shove, there's absolutely no support whatsoever. And I'm seeing this more and more. So to me, this comes across as Chinese smash and grab economics. What they're doing is they're taking the money, they're selling you a product, and then when it comes to support, it's gone. Partly our own fault, because we're expecting these bikes to be cheap, but it's mainly their fault, making promises that they can't keep. And within that, it's really annoying for those people that have saved up, say £1,000 to buy a cheap Chinese e-bike, thinking if anything goes wrong, they've got support there. And at the end of the day, when something goes wrong, and it looks like it's 1 in 5 bikes, there's no support there. Zero, nothing, nada. I'd like to say there's one above the rest for more support, and you'd like to think that Cyrusher was paying, or you were paying Cyrusher a premium for extra support, but it's just as bad there. And after I legitimately asked this week what they were doing about these batteries, the one that exploded and caught fire in somebody's garage, I was banned from the forum. And it was a legitimate question. You have to ask why they're hiding it. And to me, the only reason they would hide it is because they can't support the bikes that they're selling to the UK. What you have to remember is that, say a motor blows or a controller blows, or I think that's the main thing, let's start with that. They then have to ship this part out to you. You don't know how to fit it. 9 times out of 10, the people that I speak to haven't got a clue about how to fit a controller. They've not got a clue how to fit a motor. And in that, they're stuck with a chunk of metal they can do nothing with. Absolutely nothing. And I found myself at the back end, especially with the Engwe stuff, because I wouldn't help people towards the end, because I spend 2 or 3 hours talking to somebody, getting them through something, and I wouldn't even get thank you. Not even a like. And I found that just a waste of my time. Why would I? And people were saying, oh, you've abandoned us and this, that, and the other in personal messages. And it was like, I haven't abandoned you, but there's nothing in it for me. It wasn't my fault. And I seem to have got blamed for a lot of what went on with Engwe. They seemed to think I was some unofficial support. I went to the trouble of actually getting people get their bikes replaced when the frames are snapped, and not one person thanked me. Not one. 10 bikes I know about. And I recently found out that one of those that got his bikes replaced because of me was actually told by Engwe to say nothing about me, and they were to go on social media and thank Engwe for all the support they gave. Now, if it hadn't been me in the background doing what I was doing with Annie from Engwe, they'd have never got these bikes. And I find it a little bit snide, and I find it very disingenuous of Engwe that they'd have to go to these, how can I put it, these extremes. So I want you to think, when you're thinking about buying an e-bike, a Chinese e-bike, is what makes you go with that company? Is it reliability? Well, that's got to be top of the list. But the second thing on that list has to be support. It has to be. And like I said, I think these Chinese companies are finding out that they can't afford to support damaged bikes. Even if it's something like a battery wipes any profit out. In fact, they'd probably go negative if a battery, because they have to fly a battery out, etc., or ship one out. And then they're working on micro margins because that's how they're keeping their bikes cheap. Got to be 25-30% goes into marketing. Of what you pay for your bike, 25-30% has to go into marketing. And that's everything from new influencers to Facebook ads to sponsored ads in Google. That's where a large part of their money goes. But when it comes to support, they all seem to be letting people down. And I've yet to come across one company that does it right. I really wanted to work with Cyrusher. They seemed like a different thing altogether. In fact, I had a 20-minute online meeting with their CEO and everything was hunky-dory. And then something went wrong with their marketing, I say marketing guru, Ella. And it was about control. It was about controlling the narrative. It was about controlling what I said. And I already knew that people, if they got free bikes, that it had to be scripted. You can see it in every, and this is what you want to look for when you're looking for reviews. You'll see a similar script across the board. And that'll be something along the lines of braking, acceleration, this, that, and the other. And then they'll get into enjoying riding the bike, and you'll see those scenes. And then they do a wrap up, and some do a wrap up with a little bit of negativity in it to make it seem more real. But ultimately, it's the same shit. And this is partly what annoys me, that everybody's looking for these scripted. I have a great belief that people only believe the lies that they want to believe, and especially in marketing, especially if you want to buy something. You'll believe anything anybody wants to tell you, as long as that's what you want to hear. And this is why my Facebook pages are dead. People don't want to hear what I'm saying. And I understand that. You've all spent good money on your bikes. And a lot of you ended up on my pages because you had problems with your bikes. But like I said, I never got any thanks. I never even got a like. Occasionally I got a like. And I did video calls with people to help them deal with motors, replacing motors, hall sensors. And at the end of the day, I was just wasting my time. I wasn't even getting a thank you at the end of it. In fact, people just left the forum after that. They were gone. So this is why I sort of gave up on the whole thing of helping people. So now my thing is, I want you to learn to help yourself. I'm going to help people by showing how you do general repairs on an e-bike, be it removing the back wheel, doing a puncture, how to disconnect the electrics, swapping a controller out, everything that's to do with all sensors. Everything you need to know how to repair your own e-bike is going to be on my video channel. Not immediately. I don't have the time to do it immediately. I've got 2 bike reviews to do. I'm setting up stuff for the channel for that moped that I bought. But eventually, within the next 6 months, there'll be a lot of content on that channel that helps you to repair your own bike. Because when you buy a Chinese e-bike, you might as well forget any support. For whatever they tell you, you might as well just forget it. And the parts are cheap. A motor will cost you a couple of £100. Controller, 50 to 80 quid. Battery's a bit more expensive, but it's a battery. So if your battery fails, you swap your battery out. You can try and get it from support. Sometimes they'll actually send you one out, but it's all hit and miss. And part of that problem is that when you send in a report saying this, that, and the other's wrong with my bike, you got somebody at the other end doesn't speak English, so they have to get it translated. And I don't think they have Google Translate in China, because legally they're not meant to have Google. So they get it translated. Sometimes there's a bad translation, and normally you'll just get the reply, oh, your bike's caught fire, what can we do? And you explain blah, blah, blah. And they say, well, we'll send your controller out. This was an actual example of one of the guys that was on my forum. He had a problem with his bike. The battery caught fire, and he sent everything to Engwe. And they explained, oh, battery caught fire, blah, blah, blah. We'll send you a new controller out. I kid you not. So this is what I mean about they don't support us in the UK with bikes. In fact, those that have tried to support us, and they weren't necessarily Chinese, but Mate and Rad Bikes were in the UK, and they had shops and everything else. They closed down. They actually, in fact, it nearly bankrupted Mate. I think Mate's actually gone. And as for Rad in the UK, well, forget it, it's gone. So they've seen that business model go, and they've decided to just, like I say, do this Chinese thing where it's just, well, we're just gonna take the money, hope for the best, and when it comes to support, we'll throw a bit of support out there, but it's not going to be the amount of support that you want. It's hit and miss. So like I say, your best bet when it comes to buying a Chinese, and don't get me wrong, they're good value for money, but you have to understand that anything goes wrong is pretty much on you. You're going to have to deal with it. And there's no crying about it. You're just going to have to deal with it. And this brings me on to another thing, that people don't want to deal with it. They don't want to have a new learning curve, which I fully understand. I like learning curves. I like learning new stuff. I have done for a long time. I didn't do my masters until, I didn't even start my masters until my 40s. So every skill set I can pick up along the way, I try to embrace. The e-bikes thing, I think it's the solution to the planet's problems. Let's not start with trying to get everybody going electric, but I use my car 10% of the time that I used to use it. The rest of the time I'm out on my e-bikes. I actually ride 20, 30 miles out to see a client. And I'm actually waiting for the battery to come for that Cyrusher thing. So I've got a 42 amp hour Cyrusher. So again, come the spring, I can get out and see clients, and it's not going to be a big issue for me. I can just get out there, go see them, pedal around, get some air. It's far better than going in my car. And I don't mind the extra time it takes. And in fact, it's not that much more. I'm not stuck in traffic. And the psychopaths around here, they're far better than they deserve to be. And you can get from A to B quite easily. I mean, obviously, as you've seen from my other videos, I have problems with people trying to kill me, but it's the same everywhere. So yeah, there's a lot of muddled stuff in there, and I'm not doing anything scripted today. But this is the first of what I'm going to do in every Sunday, and I'm going to call it the Sunday service. And it's very similar to what we used to do with the cars. We all used to meet up, have a chat on a Sunday, have a coffee, have a cup of tea, talk about our cars, race them around a little bit. And we used to enjoy it. And we used to call that the Sunday service. And people used to go back on the forums and talk about it, and talk about the frustrations with different cars and everything else. So this is what I'm doing here. This is going to be the Sunday service. And every Sunday, well, possibly I'm going to have a few off, because a couple of weeks' time I'm down seeing friends in Cheltenham for my birthday night out, which is tomorrow. Big 6-0. And we go out every year, so that's going to be one Sunday off. I've been dieting for the last 10 days and I've lost 10 pounds, so I'm grumpy at the moment. So this is probably coming across in this video. But every Sunday, well, as far as I can, it's going to be at least 2 to 3 out of every Sunday. We're going to do a Sunday service, and we're going to talk about your e-bikes, the e-bikes that I bought, go over the reviews I've done of the e-bikes that I bought, nail down problems that you're having, do requests for certain things on how do you fix this, how do you do that. I mean, I've got a great one up about the tools that you need to maintain an e-bike. But again, it's just like everybody thinks they know what they need, and they don't want to spend any money. But for the sake of 150 quid, you get every tool you'll ever need to repair your e-bike. So you need to bear that in mind. But there's going to be more reviews of bikes. I'm going to continue to buy them. I'm not bothered about getting free e-bikes. If somebody wants to send me an e-bike, I'll review it fairly. You'll see the 2 reviews that I've got on there are very fair reviews. They don't say anything bad about the bikes. I actually quite like the Engwe Engine X. But after my experience with the Pro and the frame snapping, no support there. The fact that Engwe tried tying me into a £100,000 contract to if I'd said anything bad about them online or posted more pictures of their snap frames, and I saw right through that when I signed it, and it wasn't an issue. But that was to get people their free e-bikes after they had their frame snapped. So it was me that took the bullet. But knowing what it was, it didn't bother me. Previously in the past, I've cost Audi hundreds of millions of pounds, and this was over one of the TTs I bought brand new out the box, and the seats started sagging, and they denied it was an issue. And unlucky for them, I had a TT forum called TT Talk, and I had other forums as well, but we went after Audi. And what's the point? I went after Audi because this wasn't on. This was like £40,000 car out the box, and within weeks of sitting in it, the seats were sagging. Fat people, thin people, average people, all the seats were sagging. And it was down to the nappa leather and the way it was actually moving around on the seat, and it wasn't attached properly. So I went to the magazines, I went to Top Gear magazine, and they put it in theirs about the seats in the review, and Honest John and a few others. And eventually it got back to them that they'd have to deal with this, and they started to admit it was a problem. At that point, they had to start replacing the seat bolsters, which I think it was about £1,200 a car. So it was only the front seats, not the rear seats. But it also turned out it was affecting the R8, it was affecting the A4 and A5 and a few other of their cars that had just come out that they had the same design in. So after 2 years of chasing them down, 2 years of arguing with them online, various financial threats, they eventually started to do a recall on those seats. This is how I feel about these bikes, because I think they're a missed opportunity. Because I think they're akin to the American fentanyl problem, that they're throwing this shit at us. People are dying, and eventually somebody's going to die on one of these bikes. And it's going to be because of frame failure. I can tell you now, the pictures I've seen, and even when mine came apart, and I videoed it, and it's now with my solicitor, and they've only now got another 6 weeks to reply to it. It's quite horrific. Although I was fine, I didn't even fall off the bike, it just came apart in my hands, and it was just like frame snapped. And I'd had that bike just over a year. In fact, I did a happy birthday. It's probably a year and 3 months. I did a happy birthday video if you go look back about all the problems with it, but I loved the bike, and I did love the bike. It was my favourite bike. And then it disappointed me by doing what it did. So this goes to the next bit, which is, let's get back to the fact that I've been banned from various Facebook groups. And the most disappointing one was Cyrusher. And I sort of knew this was coming because they didn't know it was me posting because it was a different profile. And I asked one question: what are you going to do about these batteries? And I was instantly banned from the page. And I've had similar things happen with Engwe when I've asked about what they're going to do with these frame snapping, and you get instantly banned from the frame. So you know they have control. The only one I know that positively don't have any control over is Engwe e-bikes page, which is run by Christopher Church, and he's the one that he let me post some real heavy shit on his pages, and I knew by the response that I was getting on there, all the negativity that was either not replying to it, or what was the other thing I was dealing with? Yeah, they were either not replying to it, or they were just saying, but mine's fine, which that's a normal response that you see when somebody's got a problem with their e-bike. Yeah, but mine's all right. Well, how's that helping the person whose bike who's sat there half in tears with a bike that doesn't work? How's that helping them? Yeah, but mine's all right. And you see it all the time. You see paid actors coming and going, yeah, well, you know, Engwe are fantastic. I've never had a problem with them. And you see these a mile off. So this brings me to reviews. The reviews, especially Engwe. Let's look at Engwe's reviews on Trustpilot. Now you can see all the fake reviews in the 5-star reviews, but if you want to get a real insight into Engwe, have a look at the 1-star reviews. And have a look at the reviews that they leave on their site, because they use something that's akin to Trustpilot on their site. But you can't leave a review less than 4 stars. And I've pointed out before, I've shown my review. If anybody can find it, it's a 1-star review. And they must have had a lot of those. And they were never resolved. So they were never posted. And what are they hiding? Well, we know what they're hiding. They're hiding the fact that they've got a massive amount of dissatisfied customers. It's a one-take thing. I'm not reading from a script, so you're going to get all those little intricacies in it. So let's get back to this. I don't trust any of them. So as a thank you, I'm going to push forward the fact that Engwe and Cyrusher are still selling 750 watt motors in the UK marked up as 250 watt with an unlock system, which goes against the law in the UK. They're meant to be 250 watts, not 750 watts, and then tethered. Especially when you can untether these bikes to 750 watts by going into the menu on the Engwe bikes, or just pulling 2 wires apart on the Cyrusher ones. I know it's going to piss a lot of you off, and I won't stop until the ASA have had both of them. Now, Cyrusher's already been had by the ASA, the Advertising Standards Authority, and they had to pay a fine for that, and that was for mis-selling. They're still mis-selling. It's just under a different guise. So what I'm going to do is, in the next couple of weeks when I get time, after I've had my birthday drink and my head's a bit more wobbly, I'm going to go back to the ASA, because I've already spoke to them once. But I'm going to do a full report of what I see in the ASA. So within that, that's my next phase of what I'm going to do and what I'm going to talk about on the next Sunday service. Have a nice weekend, everyone.